Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Cy Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hello, everyone. As always, I am Tessa, and I'm joined by the lovely and amazing and accomplished and always thinking Cy.
Thank you, Tessa. I'm so excited to be here with you as always and to have another wonderful conversation.
I am too, especially since we in here in Austin, Texas, have been under this heat dome for 100 days of 100 degrees. I am delighted that we have not lost our way, and I'm delighted that we're still optimistic and wanting to uplift people because heat can be oppressive. But that also makes me think you know, the heat affects everything, but there's so much around us that impacts us and can bring us down, and we have to actively choose not to see the negative or to choose to see the positive path out of it without, I don't say I don't want to go for that toxic positivity, but we admit that the negative side exists, but we don't focus on the negative, right? We
Mm-hmm.
choose to see the good without
Yeah, yeah,
ignoring that the bad exists.
absolutely. Yeah, and
And
that's a
it
strategy. Conscious strategy.
totally,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me think about just life in general and how do we uplift ourselves and others by working on our mindset. I know when I was, say, in my 20s, I probably compared myself to other people career-wise more than I should have. And I think that can
Mm-hmm.
drag you down, and then it makes you say negative things about other people and not come from this place of
Mm,
abundance where you think everyone can achieve their goals. And I'm glad I got out of it quickly, but I think it's pretty easy to fall into that mindset, especially
mm-hmm.
if you're on social media, because there are
Mm.
so many people who say crappy little things. And when you see it again and again and again, it could be easy to fall into that, oh, yeah, they're right, as opposed to seeing that everyone has their space and everyone has a different opinion and everyone has something valuable to bring to the table merely because everybody is different and unique. And that's our superpowers.
Yes, 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 yes to all of that. I mean, it's just wild because it's so many things went through my head as you were speaking. I mean, there's so many scenarios where it's like, even when you're young, it's like just comparing yourself to siblings if you have them or cousins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whoever's in your
Mm-hmm.
little world, in your little bubble, and and then in the workplace or in school or whatever, the team, whatever it is, it's like we get into these little
Yeah.
bubble mindsets. And I've always found that one thing that helps me to be expansive and now, what I recognize as the abundance of it all is actually kind of just thinking about something bigger. I don't know why, but that's always helped me. Like I've always been a little bit of a history buff, so I think maybe that's why I can relate to that. But it's like if you think about all the things that have happened in history and all of the huge things that are so much bigger than this little thing right here, that has really helped me. And then even recently, I mean, I've gone beyond that to think a little bit more philosophically, thinking like, even, beyond this lifetime, beyond, this human form or what have you, like whatever you believe, or I guess for me, it's like whatever my evolving belief is, it makes me feel like sometimes these thoughts are just petty in a way where I'm like, is this really that important? Or, I don't know. There's just so much more to think about. There's so much more to explore. There's so much more to wonder on. There's so many bigger things. For me, that helps me to kind of put it in perspective, I guess.
You know, you raised such a important point, and I don't think I was there maybe in my 20s, but you talked about evolving opinions, right?
Mhm.
So important that,
Mm.
we all do change and evolve and adapt, and we need to think of that as a good thing as opposed to, I think, at least for me in my 20s, it was this idea that I had to stay true to my opinions,
Mm.
values, and that they should not fluctuate. But it turns out,
Mm.
it's all a bunch of gray and it's not black and white. And that's probably the idealism of youth, right? That it's
Mhm.
so clear cut what's right and wrong.
Mm.
And now I realize that it's like it's all shades of gray and
Oh,
it's
yeah. But we want that so bad. I still crave that. I still do. Like, I'm every time there's a really, like, hairy problem, I'm like, "Okay, let's just simplify it," and I try to get to, like, this minimalistic type of, like, it's either this or that, right? And then every time there's a problem that's really beyond that, it's just so funny for me to, like, see myself struggle trying to get it down to, like, this simple thing, and that it just isn't, and then you're like, "Damn, alright, I guess we have to deal with all the complexities of and nuances of this. Okay, fine." It's harder. It's a lot
it's
harder.
totally harder. But going back to what you were saying about also history, I think
Mhm,
so true, an easy way to understand things. I know when read in the news about recession or economic downturn,
mhm,
all I think to myself is this about a book I read about political history in the 1930s, and it pointed out how many people made a lot of money during the recession. And that's not something you think about. And you realize that when there's a recession, it doesn't mean everybody's not making money, right? It doesn't mean everything's going into the toilet. It just means
right,
there's some
right.
complications. But it's so easy to doomsday it that the world is ending, the world is ending.
Yes, yes, and how many and I mean, it's kind of funny, but I've always also been slightly obsessed with cults. I don't know if we've talked about that, but I think so, but but I always find that interesting too, like, that gives me perspective because you see all these cults, like, come and go, and a lot of them
Hmm.
are doomsday cults, and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
so, like, it actually I don't know why, but it gives me, like, a sense of comfort where I'm just like, "Oh, yeah," like, all these people thought, the world was gonna end, and it didn't, and it didn't, and it didn't, so, like, whenever somebody tells me the world's gonna end, I'm gonna be like, "Well, I guess, either I'm gonna get a front row seat to something and no one else has got to see in all of history, or it's not gonna happen, and it's most likely that it's really not gonna happen, because so many people have said it over and over again, so it's just funny the things that really, like, if we all, like, opened up our minds and, like, in regards to telling each other what we really think, I think it's just kind of funny how we all have these little things that help us get past all of these,
Right?
scary or complicated things in life, like, we all have the little reference points that we kind of lean on.
We do. And I think like that idea of doomsday
Mhm.
translates to like everybody's personal life too,
Mm.
because we've all been there where we assume the
Mm.
worst possible outcome is going to occur. And I think that is somewhat normal, but I don't think that necessarily makes us feel good. And I know that I feel better when I think the best possible outcome is going to occur.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I know that some people think the opposite way, and I mean, I think of so many things now as a trauma response, but I mean, it's really an opportunity for people to, save themselves. It's a classic thing, but I mean, people fear rejection, so then they just don't do things, or they just assume it's going to go bad that way. If it goes good, then they're pleasantly surprised, but if it goes bad, they're not surprised, which, there's some funny science that says, like, we would rather wait for 20 minutes knowing something that's going to happen versus waiting 5 minutes without knowing what's going to happen, right? And so because we are, like,
That's
tortured.
wild.
I know, it's just I mean, psychology is so fascinating to me. I was thinking I need to just start reading psychology stuff again because it's just so fascinating, like, people
Yeah.
literally just hate the unknown. I remember when people would ask me what my biggest fear was, I used to say the unknown. And I used to be afraid of it, and I just realized, like, this week that I'm not anymore. I'm, like, fascinated by it, and I'm interested and curious. And so, again, it's just so funny, right? Like, how we evolve and change on an individual level, and I think that shows our plasticity. I think it shows that we can change, right? And so, like, no matter what your trauma response has been, no matter what your practice and habit has been, no matter what your little, like, mental crutches have been, you can change them.
Yes, you can. This week, well, the past month, has been the Women's World Cup. And bear with me, this actually relates. So I, being a
I'm with
fan of
you.
Sweden, woke up in the middle of the morning many times to watch Sweden play. And
Mm.
because I'm living in Austin, Texas, my option to watch it included American commentators. One of the American commentators was a woman who was a former member of the US women's national team. Well, whenever Sweden and the US meet in a World Cup in the early stages, history has said that Sweden knocks the US out. And that kind of trauma has stayed with our commentator because the woman could not say anything nice about Sweden an entire game.
Mm.
It didn't matter if Sweden shut somebody out 4-0; they had screwed up everywhere along the way. And I just thought about, wow, like you're supposed to be a professional, and your job
Mhm.
is to say what's going on and what's going good in this like professional soccer match.
Yep.
But instead, you have your trauma and it is front and center and telling
Mm,
everybody how angry you still are for something that occurred, 15, 20 years ago. Uh,
interesting.
but I don't think she's alone, right? Like, think
No,
about
no,
even in your friend
it
circles where you
comes
can hear
out.
it
And it
does.
comes out, sometimes it's misdirected and misguided, and it's, I mean, a lot of times I should say it's misdirected and misguided because a lot of that trauma is from maybe childhood or another decade or even, the last job or the last relationship, right? But it's the people in front of you now that get
Yep.
to experience your fun trauma response, right?
So true. And I try
Mhm.
to think before I speak most of the time. And I realize that what impacts me and what affects me is probably not the same stuff that impacts other people. And
Mm,
so let's keep our viewpoints more like macro as opposed to micro.
mm. That helps, yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because, this topic of, like, abundance versus scarcity, layered with perspective and, like, understanding where everyone is on their journey is also another perspective that we have to, kind of grow towards.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most difficult lessons or I guess maybe one of the most important lessons, I should say, right? One of the most
Oh,
worthy lessons
absolutely.
to learn because if you, are only in your perspective, it's really difficult to relate to other people, period. Like just hard
Yep.
stop. It's just hard to do, right? And I used to do this a lot. I mean, I think we all still do it in a way, right? Where it's like the first thing you think of when somebody comes to you with a problem is you're like, well, this is what I would do. And then you're bringing like
Mm-hmm.
everything that is you, every perspective that you have, everything that has formed your worldview. But I've found a lot more success. And when I say success, I mean I've been actually able to make positive impact in people's lives that I want to, that I want to help grow and that I want to feed into. And I'm working to do that with them. I've found success first by not judging their life against my measuring stick, right? Like just
Mm-hmm.
accepting them for who they are right out the gate and just trying to put myself in their shoes as opposed to my own. And just that little switch, just that little pivot, it changes the whole thing because then you're like, okay, well, let me take everything that you've been through and try to understand, what your natural trauma responses would be like, right? What would flow from that if I know your trauma, and then apply that in this situation. What would make sense for you? What's a slightly more, positive thing or slightly like, redirect that we can do that makes sense for you and your lived experience because, me telling you what I would do. that's just like, I don't know, like, it's almost alien in a way. It's like it doesn't apply, And so you really have to you really have to just like take on someone's entire life experience as much as you can from what they'll share with you in order to even really begin to speak on it if that's what they're seeking from you.
I completely agree. And I have found that it's been helpful for me when I ask, what can I do to help you? Right?
Mhm.
To view it as a form of collaboration. Like, how can,
Yes.
what do I have that could help you get to what you want to see for yourself? And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that by asking that, it allows it to be on their terms and to help define their success the way they want to view it. And success could be anything. I'm not saying it's just monetary. It could be
No, yeah.
success as in, you know, how do
Personal
I
growth.
decorate
I
my
mean,
living room or personal growth,
yes.
right? It can mean so many things.
Health, whatever.
But
Yeah.
often, people don't know. So it's exactly what you're
Right.
pointing out, that you have to like get get them to talk to help them understand where they are. Because it has to be on their terms.
Mhm.
It has to be from their perspective, as you pointed out.
But one thing that I think adds value that, like what you just said in regards to the fact that they often don't know, right? That
Hmm.
that brings up for me one thing that people can offer that the person themselves cannot really, guide. And that is how you see that person's potential, right? Because that is
Yes.
that is such a huge thing that changes everyone. I mean, you've done that for me, I've done it for many others. Like it's literally, you know, seeing the like endless potential in each other and expressing
Yeah.
that and being able to lift each other up with the idea of our greatness and how we could step into that
Hmm.
greatness together. I mean, that is something so powerful that, mamas have been doing for
Yep.
since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really think that that's the part that really changes us. It changes our dynamic
Hmm.
with one another instead of, trying to tear one another down or feeling like, okay, there's only so much to go around. I can't believe that, they're getting these accolades on social media and I am not. Like I mean, you secretly start maybe wishing for bad things to happen to people so that your stuff looks better. I mean, it gets to be ugly, right? If we think that there's only so much to go around. But when we know that that we are in abundance, that there is
Hmm.
so much, I mean, there's an endless amount of growth and wellness and success and just all the wonderful things that we ever could dream of for each other. When we know that there's enough and we know that there's more than enough and we know that there's an abundance of enough, if that's a sentence, then it becomes, it just it falls away. All of that again, all of that pettiness, all of that,
Hmm.
angst, all of that negativity to one another, it just falls away because it doesn't make any sense anymore, right? Like if there's an abundance, then why are we fighting? Like why would we fight over this, biscuit when there's 5,000
Yep.
biscuits for the both of us? And that doesn't make any sense, right? And so that part, I feel like that part is the value that, we can't even find in ourselves. Like we often talk about doing, some internal reflection and doing mindset work and pushing ourselves out of our own comfort zones and all of that stuff. That's great, wonderful things that we should be doing and that we're doing together. We're doing great, right? And there's something that holds us back sometimes, and it's that we can't even imagine our full potential, but somebody else can. And when they say it, it immediately opens up like this whole new, kind of horizon, this whole new world, that this whole new direction you weren't even thinking about or looking at, or I mean, you didn't even imagine it, so you didn't know it was there. And then it's like somebody just points it out for you and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Ab- Absolutely. And tell me if you have the same experience that I have when you are a person who finds can see the potential in others
Mhm.
and get excited when they have reach their goals and achieve
Mhm.
things and supported the people around you and others and strangers too, being happy for people's success and people's good fortune and their great, them showing the world their greatness. When you're happy about it and you're there supporting it, I find it makes me feel better about myself. It
Mm.
uplifts me, but it also
Yes.
helps me uplift other people. It is like the best addiction in the world.
Yes, absolutely. Get into this one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, and some people don't get it, right? People are like, "Why are you spending so much time on this person or that person thing?" And I'm just like, "Because it's the best. It's the
It,
best, and it makes me feel
totally.
fantastic." And, you know, I don't wanna see the people that I love, by their own terms, failing or struggling or,
Hmm.
just suffering, period. Why would you wanna see that? And how much
Yep.
does that weigh you down? I mean, I think the silliest, fallacy that we have in the US is that there is this thing called individualism and individual responsibility. I think it's just so silly that we pretend that that's a thing. I mean, yes, people are responsible for their actions, of course, but nobody lives in a silo, period. We're social animals. And, your success is my success. Your falling is my falling. Like your pain is my pain. I mean, we're all connected, period. Like I don't understand this idea that we're not or that I mean, actually, it's funny this is coming up, yeah, literally yesterday, I was just saying, isn't it wild how and, this is a political thing, I guess, but for me, it's like, you can call it I called it capitalism, but I guess we could call it a lot of things. But the way that this society is structured, and the way that we decided, that we should be as a people, it literally is working to strip our humanity. It's telling us,
Absolutely.
"Be less emotional," right? We're emotional beings. It's saying, "Be less social." We're social beings. It's saying, "Be less connected," and we are connected beings. And so my point being is that the reason I came to recognize that actually was because I was in this wonderfully positive space celebrating Latinas yesterday, and it was all about the opposite of that and about healing and how all of these people are finding healing and growth and stepping into their greatness because of it. And it made me think, like, how are we all like, why are we all having to go through this, right? And then I just started working backwards and realizing, like, oh, because we have been taught, and like you were like, even as you're talking about like going through your 20s and all of that, that's all like a product of people socializing us to believe that we should be less and less ourselves, less and less human, less and less,
Mhm.
really the part of this interconnected network of beings. And so that all tells me that, we have to reclaim it. And the more we go there, really, the better it is for all of us, and I don't know why we're doing the other thing, but I think we need to stop.
Absolutely. I mean, looking back on it now, I realize that in my 20s was when I was the least connected to my culture. And
Mm,
Swedes are, while they tend to be very, I would say, individualistic, they have a communal attitude, right? So while they may stand a meter
mhm,
apart at the bus stop and not have conversations, which
mhm,
is their norm, their viewpoint of the world is that there needs to be a greater good before there's something
right.
greater for me. And taking this back to World Cup football, because I have watched a lot lately, this happened. So the Sweden knocked the US out. The Swedes and the entire team was asked by the press, like essentially how bad was the United States? And their response immediately was, quote, stop talking shit about the United States. Two, you need to start being more positive because they have so much going for them, then started listing all their positive attributes, and then pretty much just
Wow,
walked off the stage, right? And I'm like, that comes from a
amazing.
that comes from a
Applause.
country that is happy and that thinks
That's
about a
right.
greater good, which is the sport
Yes,
as opposed to themselves.
yes.
And in this World Cup, Sweden made it to the bronze game and won the bronze medal. And I was thinking, I was talking to my spouse about it, and I was like, I don't think if the US was playing for the bronze match that they would be happy if they won. They would just be
Mm,
mad that they didn't get the first place
mm,
medal. And
mm.
Sweden was so happy and having so much fun. And I'm like, you know, this is what I like
That's
in
how I
my
wanna
life,
be,
right?
yes.
Like, yeah, like enjoying the moment, enjoying the abundance that's before you, seeing the amount of potential and all the excitement that could happen for their sport and their country, and protecting the United States, which is not something that I think they would have received in response if the tables were turned.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
mean, I would hope, but unfortunately, I don't think that it's again, it's the mindset. It's not even
it
like
totally is the mindset.
individuals are good or bad. It's not that. It's truly not that. Because it's, like literally like we're all in this soup and they're just in a different soup. And how do we get our soup more like theirs is really my question. And, I think the answer is what we're doing and one person
Hmm.
at a time kind of thing. But I'm excited to see that it's really becoming, beyond us. I mean, even just sitting in that space yesterday, it made me realize like something's happening that's, it feels like we're doing it in little pods, but it's happening all together.
It
Maybe
is.
people are doing it in, all their separate pods, but it's happening at the same time in concert almost, and it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm just taken aback by that, and that it gives me hope, that there is something in the zeitgeist that says, let's let's heal ourselves and each other, and when you start there, only good things follow, you know?
For me, and it almost feels like a active form of rebellion
Mhm.
against the status quo in the United States, because I think we are surrounded by a lot of,
Mm.
especially if you consider our politics,
Oh, yeah.
and you add onto it the media who loves a dramatic headline,
Oh,
and
yeah.
apparently drama only revolves around negative issues and negative outcomes, which I didn't think was
Unfortunately.
possible, but that seems to
Right.
be what headlines tell me.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me, it feels like an act of rebellion to see the potential in people and to uplift them and be happy about people
It
finding their
is.
joy and not,
Yeah.
yucking their yum and not quashing their joy, but like celebrating it with them. And it feels so
It's
much better, right? It
it
just
does.
feels good.
I mean, that's why it's so sad that it's not the norm, that it's I mean, it's so strange that that is the radical thing to do. Especially because, I mean, I feel like all through history, so many people really had to cooperate, to succeed. I mean, literally, our existence, right,
Hmm.
really was paramount. It really, pinged on this thing of cooperation. I mean, that's kind of the evolution of our species. So it worries me that to say the least. I don't know why, Tessa, but this morning I was looking up videos on the fall of Greece and Rome. I was just curious about how that went down. I was
Did
really
you learn
curious, and
anything?
I don't know why. So I mean, I think that's why, right? Like I was like, can we have? I mean, I was really thinking like, can we have it all? Because I feel like we're on this weird precipice of, you know, eh, I don't know how to explain it except to say that I have like a heart and mind that knows that, we're in this existence of abundance. And I worry for so many people who don't see the world that way because that scarcity mindset, I believe, is really what's rendering so much of this hate
Yep.
and nature to oppress others, right? I mean, literally, we just talked about it in terms of like individuals on social media. And it's the same thing if you extrapolate it into the larger, like societal, like, whatever we call that, the zeitgeist or whatever we call it. Like, there are philosophies out there that are playing out where people who are in that scarcity mindset as a collective are working to oppress other people as a collective. Like it's just on a bigger
It's
scale,
so
right?
destructive.
Yes. And that's why I was like, I wonder what really happened to these societies. And especially Greece. I mean, I looked up Rome first because I was thinking that they were, similar, but really Greece was really interesting because Greece was this incredible, like, I guess Renaissance is probably not the word, but I mean, it was just this time, it seems like, of enlightenment, right? Where, and that's what I
Hmm.
feel right now in this time and age. It's like we are similarly, like, just, I'm just in awe, frankly, of like how, all of our technologies and information sharing is just exploding. I mean, there's no other word for me than to say like it's explosive. Like, I mean, it's out of this world, right? Like so fast, so much change, so much happening that is pushing us. It's like every year it feels like we're going decades into the future for me anyways. And so when I think about Greece, I see that they had these leaps and bounds where it was like art, philosophy, democracy, obviously, like so many different areas just were expansive in this relatively short amount of time. It's from what I gleaned from this YouTube video. And so I was curious about the fall because I feel like I don't know why, but that's just like a reference in my head where, this was a democracy. They had art and culture and all of this amazing enlightenment, and then they had a fall. And I almost feel like people have been talking about it too, like, this could be coming for us because it happened
Yep.
to them, it could happen to us, right? And I don't, for whatever reason, I just thought, oh, let me see what actually happened because I don't like having like I don't like having like a baseless fear of nothing.
Right.
So I'm just like, let me see what happened. And what did I learn? I mean, what I learned was basically, I mean, I don't want to mistake, Grecian history, which I'm probably about to do, but what I gleaned from it was essentially that, all of the things that people say were the fall of Greece, like, that people were just so excessive, or I don't know what they say, but
Oh,
I
this
have
like
this like
hedonistic view.
yes, they like, oh, they were just so hedonistic, which I'm like, is that why they had this fall? Because I'm pro hedonist. So I'm just like, is that why? And I
I think
looked
that
back
would
at
be a
it.
Puritan
Yes,
um,
exactly. Thank
trauma
you.
response.
Again, thank you. Like, see, that's what I mean. Really wanted to put it in perspective because I'm like, is that really what happened? And it's not.
No.
It's definitely not. Like, it's definitely not. So, like, even with the Roman thing, I watched the whole Roman thing and it was literally like Rome was just at too many wars, which could definitely be the fall of the United States, right? Like, obviously, we
Right.
love a good multi, international type, ongoing, sometimes secret wars. We love that. So that could absolutely be our fall. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes complete sense, right? They just had too many wars going on, all of that good stuff. And then people fighting for power. And
Hmm.
then on the Greece side, it was actually far less dramatic. It was like, oh, the Spartans were bubbling up. They were really aggressive. Um, and then there was this other outside threat that really wanted land. And so like they had to defend the land. I think it was like modern day Turkey, and so against the Persians. And so the Spartans and the Greek, they like came together, to hold off the Persians. They finally got a peace agreement of like maybe 100 years later, I think it was. And then the Spartans came for Greece, and Greece was like, all right, like I mean, it wasn't really that dramatic. They were just like, we're not gonna do. I mean, maybe they fought for it. I don't know, but all I know is that Spartan was like, we'll still let Greece be free, but like they wanted to take over because that was just their ambition, and it was probably coming from their own trauma response of having to prove something to mommy and daddy. I don't know, but all I know is that Greece did not fall because they were taking pleasure in life. That's not it. That's all I really wanted to know. So I think it's kind of funny, but again, history gives me some sense of reality because I've always loved a true story. When I watch things, I'm like, okay, the fantasy's cute, but I love a true story because that makes me feel like this is reality. This is informing my reality, and I could learn something
I
from this.
completely agree. And I'm thinking about back on what I learned about the fall of Greece. And for some reason, what I feel like I took with me was that it was a complete obliteration and annihilation of those people. And that is obviously not correct.
Right, right, exactly. It's so interesting, like, the way that people present history for their own purposes, apparently.
Yes.
And if you don't question it or you don't go find out for yourself, then and I mean, this is actually a great, like, life lesson to apply to our lives because my life experience is that when I was going through my younger age and even through my 20s, I was operating off of a lot of what people told me. And
Mhm.
the people that were surrounding me had limited mindsets to an extent, right? Based on their lived experiences. And
Mhm.
until I got broke out of that and started learning about the vastness of history, like the world history and the vastness of lived experiences, I was like, "Oh, there's so much more," you know? And then it just changes everything because 'cause you're like, "Oh, okay, so all of that was one thing, but it's not the only thing."
And when you say that, I think about how it's like a compounding or exponential trauma response, right? Because
Mm, yep,
we, especially when we're young, take it in for,
generational.
yeah, we're taking it,
Generational trauma response, yes.
yeah. And it even goes down to things like history, apparently, because what
Yep.
I took away for it was total annihilation, and that is not correct.
And I mean, I it's just so funny that you're saying this, it's so real. I mean, it's so correct. I mean, whoever told you that or whoever really wanted to project that to you was probably trying to protect you, and they were probably trying and their only reason they're presenting it as true is because someone probably presented that to them as true because they were trying to protect them. Like, I mean, it's just kind of funny. Like, I mean, it's like a passed on trauma response. And if you think about all the
Yeah.
intergenerational trauma that we've all surely,
Oh, yeah.
unrolled from, I mean, of course we're gonna have those things. Of course. I mean, of course. I don't know if you've read uh uh what is it called? Oh God, it's like PTSD, but it's about post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's so good. And the author talks about this and how, people will create these protective mechanisms by which they might be in some ways harmful to the people that they love, but it's really just a protective measure, that would keep them from greater
Wow.
harm. Yeah, and it's like this is intergenerational. This and then at some point you don't even know why you're doing it. Right? Because, like, the
Yep.
threat may or may not still be there, or it may or may not be there to the same extent, but you're still expressing this trauma response, maybe even maybe even, even more intensely than you would have before, or at the same intensity level, or what have you. You don't even there's not even that connection there anymore, or it may have changed, but you don't know where that trauma response even came from because it's intergenerational. It's even more complicated than, going and working out your stuff in therapy. There's stuff you're doing, you don't even know why you're doing it.
Oh my God.
That's
Oh
that
my
part is
God.
really wild, yeah.
I don't know. I guess it is just a practice of identifying it. It obviously doesn't have to happen all at one time, nor probably should it, because that would be a lot to do at one time.
Yes.
But I mean, I feel a certain sense of obligation to like correct those situations
Mhm,
so that
mhm,
I'm not
absolutely.
imposing them
Passing it
on
on
anyone
again?
else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's,
even the same thing with, like, just girls, like, raising girls and women, like, we
yep.
are absolutely passing on tons of trauma response,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, just think about the whole, like, rape culture. So
Yep.
much of that so much of that is, like, I mean, and probably justifiably so, like, obviously, there's a real fear, and justifiable fear of rape. But I mean, look at the way that it's manifested in so many negative ways that we don't even know where that is coming from almost. It's just a thing. We just do it.
And I think the one that sticks in my craw, I think that's a Southern saying, is dress codes, right? And which I
Oh
think is
Lord.
part of rape culture, right? Because it's not
Yes.
about teaching the perceived aggressor, the males, to not sexually assault people. It's, it just pisses me off. I don't think there's a better way to say it, right? Like,
No,
how do
yeah.
you force people to conform as opposed to correcting the bad behavior in someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess dress codes could be more complicated than just being about rape culture, but I was totally triggered because my baby girl is in first grade and they literally wrote about dress code in her little, like handbook, and I was just like, really? I mean, I don't know. I struggle with it. Like I I don't know. I I'm trying to separate like what is and isn't about that. And it's hard for me because I'm just like, why are you telling a first grader they can't wear, I don't know, a spaghetti strap, for example? I'm just like, what
Yeah,
difference does that make? Like a cap
yeah,
sleeve is something different than a spaghetti strap. It's not. Like your armpit is still exposed, so that's not it. Like your
right.
shoulder is too much. A first grader,
And
it
why?
really, I don't get it.
And it's so the coming from my Swedish perspective, why are we hypersexualizing
Yes, that's what
kids?
I'm saying. And that's exactly what, so like, I'm trying to be reasonable in it all. I'm really struggling with it because I'm just like, where is this actually coming from? And nobody else is questioning it. It's just like, or it feels like no one else is questioning it because I'm not having a conversation with anybody else about it. I'm just sitting here
Right.
reading this paper being triggered. So
Which I
going
think
through
is
a whole
totally
issue.
normal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, then maybe by design, right? Because I mean, you don't want
Oh
people having
yeah.
collective power or having opinions or anything. So
Oh, heaven forbid. Especially
questioning things.
especially opinions that differ from what
Mhm.
is a prevailing norm. And I think
Exactly.
the education system in the United States has so many like flawed norms that are
Oh yeah.
forced into it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so many. Yeah. I'm really interested to see how it's changed actually, through my baby's journey versus like how it was when I was in it. Because I think a lot of things have, you know, I think some things have changed, I guess I should say. I have no idea yet, but I've noticed some things and I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, it's just interesting to see the evolution. And unless you have a child in school, I mean, or unless you're an educator or something, you might not know actually. I was just thinking about that too. Like, I mean, before she started going to school, I mean, I just assumed things were the same, I guess. I have no idea.
I mean, I hope some things have changed. I remember
I
being
would hope.
essentially told girls were not good in math. And I thought, well, that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You're dumb. No.
I'm,
No,
I'm
you are
certain,
misinformed, I mean.
I am certain, like 10-year-old me who responds with,
Right.
well, you're stupid. I can guarantee that's what I would have thought. Now I would like to say I'm a little more evolved who would say, well, I don't think
Uh,
you're correctly informed on this
right,
situation.
right.
But inside, it's
Evolution.
probably, that 10-year-old might still be there going, oh my word, you are so dumb.
And that's okay. I mean, I think that like literally that's our evolution, right? Of
Yeah.
like knowing all of us and that's okay too. I mean, I think it's kind of funny like this is a whole different topic probably, but it's kind of it's kind of interesting how we have to, sacrifice some of our instincts or like our true opinions for sake of cooperation or sake of professionalism, dare I say.
Hmm.
I always find that really fascinating and I've never really subscribed to it. And I mean, I shouldn't say that. I should not say that. I should say that, the way that I've described it is like I feel like I've definitely had to engage in code switching is what, we call it sometimes, when we have to act a different way for different people to basically get where we want to be. And so I think that I've definitely had to learn to be like a chameleon and have to, engage in code switching, whether it be conscious or not. And 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 lately, just like being more conscious about it, I've realized that, I've been working steadily towards bringing my true self into every space.
Yep.
And it's not easy actually. It can be uncomfortable and what I've realized is that the people who don't like it are just not the people for me. And that they shouldn't really be in my world, right? I mean, that's the most fascinating. I mean, that's my favorite part about this human experience in a way is like you can kind of curate your whole world. We have enough people, we have enough
Yep.
places, we have enough experiences, we have enough options. Like you can literally make it what you want. But you have to know that you have that power first.
Right. And I think we've talked about, curating our friends and our support group and our advisory boards so they uh, that they reflect who we are and they provide a positive that they all provide a positive it's a symbiotic positive relationship, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody's out there using one another. Everybody's out there supporting and collaborating
Right.
and ensuring that there's an abundance for everybody and that everybody sees each other's potential.
Yes.
And when you
Yes.
find that
And
group,
wants
it's
them to.
magical.
Yes, and wants
Yes.
them to get to that potential, right?
And I guess maybe this is should be said, even though I think it's implied in our conversation, it's genuine, right? Like it's not
Mm.
a, or I'm
Mhm.
doing it because this will achieve the end goal. It's a, this is what I want to see in the world.
Yeah. I mean, some people are just using one another, and I think we have to just recognize that in a way. Like,
Yeah,
well, well, actually, as I say that out loud, I mean, I even challenge myself because, what does that really mean? I think
right.
when you say like you're using somebody, there's this negative connotation of like, oh, you're just using me. Like you just want this thing from me and you don't care about me. But on the other hand, I think you can genuinely care about other people and you can build each other up at the same time. And you can benefit from other people and their relationships, connections, experiences, wisdom, fabulousness. Like you can you can
Hmm.
benefit from them at the same time also caring about them and wanting to build them up in every
Absolutely.
way that you can, right? So like even as I use that language, it's just funny because it's programming, right? Where people have I've been taught that like you don't use people. But if you think about it in that way, where it's like you can never use somebody, it's a bad thing to use somebody, that means that you're never taking advantage of the gifts that that person has to offer you and the
Yeah.
enrichment that they can offer to your life. That means you're shying away and being like, oh no, I don't want to use you. I don't want to take advantage of you. Well, I say, like, let's turn that around and think about it again in a positive way of we don't have to
I
use each
love
other
this.
because we're not using each other up. We have an abundance of resources. We have an abundance of energy. We have an abundance of greatness. We can't use each other up. That's
Oh,
impossible,
I
right?
love this.
We can only use each other's energies to build each other up. And when we really care about one another, that's genuine to your point.
I love this. And it points out to me that when people are saying that so and so is using so and so to get what so and so wants,
Mhm. Mhm.
they're coming from a scarcity mindset.
Yes. Call that scarcity mindset out.
And I'm like, okay, this totally changes that situation for me and changes the use of the word use. The
Yes.
use of the word use.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the use
You
of the
know,
word use.
yeah. Let's ignore the fact that I double used. Well, this
No.
is getting complicated. But it's almost like what we're coming from and talking about the sense of abundance. Use is more of a utilitarian sense as
Mhm.
opposed to a negative connotation that I think is often attributed in, just basic everyday American English.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Wow, that's really powerful. That
It
change
makes
in mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift, right? And we just have and this is why I love talking out loud with you, Tessa, because I I've also been thinking about, I don't know why, but I've been thinking about this idea that people believe that we all have these like inner dialogues, which of course some people do, and they have these conversations with themselves. Um, but you know, for me, I'm an extrovert. I talk out loud. And so that means I think out loud. And so I need that. I need to have these conversations out loud. And when I am having, my quote unquote inner dialogue or inner relationship, I mean, I don't think I really have a full on like, conversation with myself internally. That's not really a thing for me. I think that it sense to me it's more of, what I sense or it's more expressed in myself as feelings versus, cogent thoughts actually. I have to articulate my thoughts aloud for me to really, really, truly think about them or in writing. That might be the only, I mean, that's why journaling is probably the best thing that I'm not doing. I need to be doing more of, because that's really a way for me to articulate my thoughts. I have to be able to get them out in words to really think them through. And, and if we don't give that space to each other, then, maybe that's one of the reasons that people struggle to do mindset work, because there's this idea that you have to do it alone, or that you have to,
Hmm.
just meditate, reflect, do your work on your own type of thing. And yeah, I just wanted to share that it's also this. It's also, finding like minds that you can explore new concepts with that help you do the mindset work together.
Absolutely. I am so glad you shared that. And for those of you who may be introverted or like me, ambiverts, I find that journaling helps, but it helps me like clear out the inner dialogue so that I can trust my instincts more because I am a
Mm,
true believer in like trusting my gut. And I
mhm,
need all the like stuff moved away so that I can find
mm.
out what my intuition is telling me in a very
Yes,
clear and clean way.
yes, your intuition is correct. And I mean, I've always said every time that I've gone against my intuition, I've regretted it. And so
Yep.
I just trust her. I just say, you got this. And I let her do her thing. And I love that there can be a practice to clear the path, for trusting yourself, for trusting your intuition, because she's very wise.
Totally. And I like to think because I believe everybody is excuse me, everybody is good and everybody wants to actually in their true form support people and build a better world and build a world that they want to live in. I think that if we all learn to trust our intuition more, we would see more positive change and we would
Mm.
see more of a sense of abundance. But this again is my optimistic view of the world where everybody is fundamentally good and
And
wants
don't discount
fundamentally
that.
better things.
Don't
Thank you.
don't discount that. I feel like you're like, but that is just
Yeah.
me. No,
Hmm.
that is the fabulous perspective that you've chosen to share with us. Thank you for sharing it and spreading that idea, because it's an important one. And as you were speaking, it made me think the opposite of intuition is fear.
Yeah, that's a very excellent point. I hadn't thought about that.
Because why wouldn't you choose your intuition? It's scary. And if there's
Yeah.
something else that's fear based that you're like, oh, 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 I have to pay attention to that because it's a threat, it takes you away
Hmm.
from your intuition. It takes you away from your courage. It takes you away from greatness, really, right? Because now you have to be in scarcity and you have to be fearful that something's being taken away from you. So I love that we've brought this whole conversation of abundance to this very relatable, real thing that we all know as our intuition. Because for me, that tells me practically, in my very utilitarian mind, that now I know how to practice in my greater belief of abundance, right? Like I have this belief of abundance, but practice? How do I practice it, right? How do I put it into my life? And I think you just gave me part of the answer, which is lean harder into trusting my intuition every time. Know that that is moving you closer to abundance.
First off, I love your utilitarian mind.
I
Second,
love
when you
all
were
your
talking,
mind.
same, hard same. But when you were talking, I realized when we're not trusting ourselves, I think that's when we fall into the trap
Mhm.
of doomsdaying and assuming the worst
Yep.
possible outcome because we're just embracing fear, because we're
Yep.
not sitting with ourselves and realizing what is our intuition saying. Because I truly believe we know, like at our hearts, our intuition knows, and we've just got to open ourselves up to listen to it.
Yes.
And it
And
takes
that's where
practice.
creativity comes from, you know?
Hmm.
And I think creativity is power, like to bring something into the world that just came from your mind and your spirit. And I mean, that's amazing, right? And then to use your intuition and courage to put it out there. I mean, I really think that we all have so much power that is just untapped, and we have been listening to other people who are afraid and have a scarcity mindset tell us that we cannot when we absolutely can. There's no reason why we cannot. The only reason we cannot is if we choose to believe those lies, and they're lies.
Just lies.
They're just lies. And the truth is, I mean, it's real. And when you go and you take that leap and you trust your intuition, and then it happens, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, then it becomes so clear. And I just want so many people, I want to just bring so many people on the other side with us because I feel like we've both had enough um, experiences uh, like that, that we're lucky enough to know that it's true already. And we just
Yeah,
need to like bring more and more people on this side of it so that then they know it too.
could not agree more. And for all y'all listening, I thank you. And I hope you find and listen to your intuition and your inner voice. And if you want to give it a name, give it a name. I haven't named my intuition yet, but maybe I should now that I said that because it might help with the dialogue. It might help you find and discover your intuition. But do, because I think it is the key for everyone to realize their own potential. And when you can't find it and you're having troubles, make sure the people around you are there seeing your potential and uplifting you. Because I know Cy does that for me. Every conversation, I walk away feeling so much better. I hope all of you have a Cy in your life.
Thank you, Tessa. And you know that that's who you are for me, and so much more than that. And I love you, and I love everyone listening. And I just want for you all to live in your power, in your abundance, and staying uplifted. So we wish that for you, and we'll see you on the other side. See you next time.